Tanya's told me so much about you, Sam said. I doubted that, but I appreciated the effort. As we all sat down, the story came out. Tanya and Sam had been dating all through college, and now that they'd graduated, they decided to tie the knot. So, Sam, Mom said, leaning forward eagerly, tell us about your family. What do your parents do? Sam smiled. Oh, they're in business. They own a chain of high-end boutiques across the country. I swear I could see dollar signs light up in my parents' eyes. Dad puffed up like a peacock. Well, we're thrilled to welcome you to the family, he declared. Now, about the wedding. I think we should spare no expense. In fact, I'd be happy to cover half the cost myself. I nearly choked on my drink. Half the wedding costs? This from the man who wouldn't spend a dime on my college education? That's very generous, Sam said, looking a bit uncomfortable, but really, there's no need. Nonsense. Dad boomed. We want this to be the event of the season. Nothing but the best for my daughter and her groom. I caught Tanya's eye across the room. She looked embarrassed, uncomfortable. It was hard to tell. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. As the evening wore on, the wedding plans grew more and more extravagant. A 5-star venue, gourmet catering, designer dresses. My parents were going all out to impress Sam's family. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of raised voices downstairs. Groaning, I dragged myself out of bed and crept down the stairs, curious about what new drama was unfolding. Tanya and Sam were standing in the living room, a sleek folder in Sam's hands. My parents sat on the couch, looking confused. What do you mean, another city? Dad was saying, his face turning an alarming shade of red. Sam opened the folder, revealing glossy photos of a stunning beach resort. We've always dreamed of a destination wedding, he explained, his voice excited. Look at this place. It's perfect. I watched as my father's eyes bulged at the price list Sam handed him. This is ridiculous, he spluttered. It's 3 times what we discussed. But Dad, Tanya argued, you said you wanted the best. This is the best. Dad stood up, his fists clenched. I meant the best in our hometown, where our friends can attend. Who's going to travel across the country for your wedding? Our friends will, Sam said softly, looking hurt. The argument escalated quickly. Dad insisted on a local wedding, while Tanya and Sam stood their ground on the destination plan. I stood in the corner, feeling like I was watching a tennis match, my head swiveling back and forth between the two sides. Finally, Dad exploded. Enough. It's either a wedding here, the way I want it, or you're on your own. The room fell silent. Tanya's face hardened, a look I'd never seen before. Fine, she said coldly. We'll do it on our own. With that, she grabbed Sam's hand and stormed out, slamming the door behind them. Dad collapsed onto the couch, his face in his hands. Mom fluttered around him, murmuring soothing words. I stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do. I'm going to head back to college, I said quietly. Neither of them responded. I packed my bags and left, grateful to escape the tension-filled house. Back at college, I threw myself into my studies, trying to forget the family drama. Weeks turned into months, and life went on. I was deep into my final project when I got the call that changed everything. Is this Eric Thompson? A formal voice asked. Yes, that's me, I replied, my heart racing. This is Mr. Johnson from Johnson Associates law firm. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your grandparents, Robert and Margaret Thompson, were in a car accident 3 days ago. I'm sorry to inform you that they didn't survive. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My grandparents, gone? It couldn't be true. They were the only ones who had ever truly believed in me, supported me. And now? Ms. Thompson, the lawyer's voice brought me back to reality. There's something else we need to discuss. Your grandparents will. I listened in a daze as Mr. Johnson explained that I was the sole beneficiary. My grandparents had left me everything, their cozy house, their savings, everything. I sat on my bed after the call ended, trying to process it all. Grief for my grandparents warred with disbelief over my inheritance. I was now the owner of a house and had a substantial amount of money in the bank. The dust had barely settled on my grandparents' funeral when the vultures started circling. I was still trying to process my grief when Tanya showed up at my door, all smiles and sisterly love. Eric, bro, she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug that felt about as genuine as a $3 bill. How are you holding up? I stepped back, eyeing her warily. I'm managing. What are you doing here, Tanya? She sauntered into my apartment like she owned the place, making herself comfortable on my couch. Well, I heard about Grandma and Grandpa's will. That's quite a windfall you got there. And there it was. I crossed my arms, already knowing where this was heading. Look, Eric, Tanya said, her voice taking on that wheedling tone I knew all too well. Sam and I are still trying to put together our dream wedding, and now that you've come into some money. I cut her off. No, Tanya. I'm not paying for your wedding. Her face fell, then hardened. Come on, Eric. Don't be selfish. It's not like you earned that money. We all know you were just sucking up to them to get their money. The accusation hit me like a slap in the face. How dare you? I hissed. I love them. They were the only ones who ever believed in me. Yeah, because you played them like a fiddle. Tanya was on her feet now, shouting, poor little Eric. So neglected. Give me a break. At least I'm not a spoiled brat who thinks the world owes him a fancy wedding. I shot back. We went back and forth, hurling accusations and old grievances at each other. Years of resentment and hurt came pouring out. By the time Tanya stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I was shaking with anger and hurt. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, my phone exploded with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, my parents had been busy. How could you be so selfish, Eric? Your poor sister just wants a nice wedding. I always knew you were trouble. The messages went on and on. I called my parents, demanding an explanation. Well, what did you expect? Mom sniffed. Refusing to help your own sister. It's shameful. You didn't want to pay for her ridiculous wedding either, I reminded her. That's different, Dad chimed in. We're her parents. You're just being greedy with your inheritance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Greedy? I worked my ass off in college while you two showered Tanya with everything she wanted.